Hello friend, today's story comes to us from Abhishek, who hails from Bihar. His family used to be 7 strong, but now there are only 6. During this whole business, they lost a family member, and in a way that's hard to swallow. So let's get down to the details of Abhishek's family. First up, there's his older brother Rocky, who was a bit of a protector for his younger siblings. A bit of a tough lad, not one to be messed with in their town. Second in line is their sister Ashley, then comes Michael, then Abhishek himself, followed by Ryan, and the youngest sister, Lily. They all used to live in the city, but they were plagued by burglaries, and their health wasn't the best. So their uncle suggested they move back to their old town, where they had 2 other uncles. These 2 were actually their step-uncles, but their dad didn't treat them any differently from his own brothers. He loved them like his own, and they'd helped him out a fair bit. After a lot of thought, their dad decided they'd head back to the town. Family was there and they could keep an eye on the kids. He was worried about something bad happening while he was away at work. So in 2009, they packed up and moved to their old town. It took the kids a bit to settle in, but they all got there in the end. A year and a half went by and everything was tickety-boo. Then, one day in 2011, their dad, John, who worked for the police, was home for a couple of days. He was having a cuppa in the yard, sitting on a cot. Abhishek was tinkering with his dad's Walkman, and their mum, Sarah, was getting the grub ready for the evening. It was around 4 in the afternoon when John suddenly started shaking violently like he was having a fit. Sarah, who was chopping veg, noticed and shouted, "John, what's up with you?" Abhishek dropped the Walkman and went over to his dad, Joe. HN seemed all right, but Sarah was adamant that something was amiss. As soon as Abhishek said that, John started with the shaking again. Young Abhishek was proper spooked. He was only about 11 at the time, and he ran to his dad asking what was wrong. John, though, seemed fine, saying he felt all right. But then some tea spilt on him, and they realized he wasn't putting it on. He said he didn't know what was happening, maybe just a funny turn. He told them not to fuss. He was fine. A bit later, their uncle popped by. They told him what had happened with John, and he suggested they get someone to take a look, saying there were a lot of these witch doctor types about casting spells and whatnot. John wasn't having any of it, saying it was probably just a dizzy spell, but they should see a proper doctor. Still, they went to see one of these local healers. This healer said someone had tried to curse him, but his stars had protected him. He told them to keep an eye on the family and gave them a charm to wear, saying it would sort everything out. He also wrote something on a bit of paper and told them to dissolve it in water and drink it 3 times a day for a couple of days. They went home, and even though they weren't really into all that stuff, they were a bit spooked by what the healer had said. It planted a seed of doubt in their minds. That day, Rocky, the eldest lad, was also at home, and they all started talking about it. They wondered if it had anything to do with a woman in the town who was rumored to be a witch. It's hard to say what's true and what's not in it. People often have their own ideas about things, and when they can't explain something, they try to find a reason, even if it's a bit far-fetched. Then they remembered something that had happened a while back. A few days before his sister Ashley was due to have some blokes over to meet her for a potential marriage. Ashley was a pretty girl and always wore nice clothes. So this woman came over to their house and asked Sarah if she could borrow one of Ashley's suits for her daughter to wear when the potential grooms came to visit. Rocky, who was there at the time, had heard a few things about this woman, none of them good. So he told her straight, in front of his mum, that they had no clothes for her, and she should clear off. Normally, if you tell someone to sling their hook like that, they'd either have a go at you, or just scarp her off quietly. But this woman, she just stood her ground staring at Sarah, not even giving Rocky a second glance. She just kept glaring at them. Rocky, seeing this, got even angrier and told her to get out and stop staring. Then she finally turned her gaze from Sarah to Rocky, and then left. Now they were wondering if what was happening now was connected to that incident. But time passed, and they sort of forgot about it. About 8 or 10 months later, in 2012, Ashley started acting really different. She used to be so caring and considerate, but she became withdrawn, moody, and quick to snap at everyone, even the little ones. She'd argue back if anyone said anything to her. She stopped doing her chores and gave up her prayers. Everyone was worried about her. So, they took her to the doctor, but all the tests came back normal. The doctor said she might be overthinking things and gave her some medication, saying she should be right as rain in a couple of weeks. But she didn't get any better. In fact, her behavior got worse. After a bit, they decided to try a different tack. So they went back to that healer, not the one from before, but someone else. This new healer had a look and said that someone close to them had put a curse on their family, and Ashley's condition was a result of it. They were shocked, saying they didn't have any enemies. But the healer insisted it was someone from their own household. Then, the healer did some chanting and blew into Ashley's ear a few times. He said that Ashley had been given a nayati, a type of curse that slowly leads to someone's death. They were all terrified, wondering who would want to do such a thing to them. The healer wouldn't say who it was, but said it was someone from their own family. He gave them a charm for Ashley and told them to be careful. Ashley's mom asked him to give charms for the rest of the family too, so they'd all be protected. So, he gave them all charms, and they went home, a bit shaken up. They started being more cautious, keeping an eye on things. The next day, Abhishek was doing his homework with his cousin in his room, which was lit by a lantern because there was a power cut. Ashley was lying on a cot nearby. Suddenly, Abhishek heard a growling noise. He asked his cousin if it was him, but his cousin said it wasn't. Then he heard the growling again. He told his cousin to be quiet. As he started writing again, he heard the growl a third time. He looked over at Ashley, and just as he did, the door behind them flew open, knocking his cousin off his chair. Ashley's hair was all blown about, and the lantern went out. Then Ashley stood up on the cot and started screaming for help. His mom, dad, and siblings came running in. Ashley was terrified, shouting about the witch woman. No one had ever experienced anything like this before. Everyone was in a state. The neighbors came running in too. They all agreed that Ashley was possessed and needed help. So, John called someone he knew, a Marana who was supposed to be an expert in these things. The Marana came over with some big iron nails with Urdu writing on them. He went around the house, hammering the nails into the walls. Abhishek said that every time he hammered a nail in, flames came out. Whether it was a trick or not, everyone saw flames coming from the walls. After that, the Marana said the house was safe and no evil spirit could enter. John asked if they should move out, but the Marana said there was no need. He'd sorted it. They took his word for it and tried to get back to normal, but Ashley was never the same. She was always acting strange and talking nonsense. She'd ask her mom weird questions about death and where people go when they die. She was also doing another odd thing. Behind their house, their uncle had a garden with a lemon tree. Ashley would go there twice a day, every day, and stare at a house that was visible from there. It was the house about the woman who had asked for the clothes. She'd spend half an hour there just staring at the house like she could see something or someone was calling her. She was never left alone there. Someone from the family was always with her. Then one night something truly awful happened. Everyone had eaten dinner and gone to bed. Around 2 a.m., Sarah woke up to a growling sound. She got up and saw Ashley lying on her bed, foaming at the mouth and making that growling noise. She screamed, and everyone woke up. They tried to help Ashley, but she couldn't speak. Her eyes were open, but she couldn't say anything, and she kept foaming. Then they noticed 2 marks on her tongue, like snake bites. But they had mosquito nets, so a snake couldn't have gotten in. And even if it had, it's very unlikely a snake would bite someone's tongue while they were asleep. Ryan was massaging Ashley's hands, and Rocky ran to get their uncle and a local doctor. The doctor, who wasn't a proper doctor but had some medicine for snake bites, came and said she'd been poisoned. But they hadn't had any poison in the house, and if it was a snake, her tongue would have been blue. The doctor refused to treat her and told them to take her to a hospital. So, they got an auto rickshaw to take her to the city hospital, which was about 20-25 kilometers away. But on the way, their uncle started acting suspiciously, trying to delay things. He kept telling the driver to stop, saying there was a closer doctor who could help. Sarah insisted they go straight to the hospital, but her uncle was adamant. Eventually they went to this other doctor, but he also said she'd been poisoned and told them to go to the hospital. As they were leaving that town, something even stranger happened. As they passed under a banyan tree, Ashley's body suddenly tensed up, and she died in her mother's arms. They turned back, heartbroken. When they got home, their uncle immediately started pressuring them to cremate Ashley as soon as possible, saying the police would get involved. He also tried to scare them by saying the hospital would take her organs, so she wouldn't be whole in the afterlife. It was like he was desperate to get rid of the body. Abhishek was convinced his uncle was involved somehow, and didn't want anyone to find out the truth. They prepared for the cremation. It took 8 or 10 men to lift Ashley's body, even though she was only a young girl. They took her to the cremation ground and performed the last rites. In all the chaos, no one had informed John. When Sarah finally managed to call him, he was devastated. He couldn't believe they'd cremated his daughter without even telling him. He rushed home, distraught. The whole family was grieving. They stayed there for 13 days, but things didn't settle down. Something else strange happened. After the local doctor had come to check Ashley, there was a strong smell of urine in the house. No one could figure out where it was coming from. The smell was particularly bad in the room where Ashley had died. A few days later, they started feeling like there were other people in the house. They could sense a presence all the time. At night, they'd hear black cats crying on the roof. They were terrified. On the 13th day, the day of the final rituals for Ashley, something else happened. Lily, the youngest sister, was sleeping when she suddenly woke up gasping for air. She told her parents that someone was trying to strangle her. Everyone was terrified again. John, in a fit of rage, shouted at whatever it was, threatening to kill them if they didn't leave his family alone. He grabbed his sword, ready to fight. The others calmed him down, fearing he would get himself into trouble. Nothing else happened that night. The next morning, they called Abhishek's uncle, their mother's brother, and he came over. He said he would take them to a holy man who could help. They went to this holy man's place, which was in a village far away. There were many other people there for healing, but Abhishek's uncle had already called ahead. The holy man told the others to leave, saying Abhishek's family needed urgent help. He sat them down and after a while said that someone from their own family had done this to them. He said it was their step-uncle. They were shocked because their step-uncle had always helped them.